That scope belongs in a museum, sir.
That scope hasn't been made in 40 years, and this isn't a collector's show, mbos. There are people here paying $2,400 to learn practical technique. That sentence cost Cody Farris his understanding of his profession. By Sunday afternoon, the 78-year-old he was talking about would have placed 5 rounds inside 1 minute of angle on a steel plate at 1,000 yards, using the same scope Cody had just dismissed. Cody was top 15 PRS national. The firing line at the Appalachian Rifle Academy in Crossville, Tennessee, heard every word he said. The deputy from Knox County looked at his hands. Priya, at the adjacent firing point, stopped adjusting her kestrel. Emmett Ray Thacker did not turn his head. He had been in the prone position for 45 seconds, the time his right leg required to lower itself in 2 stages. His left arm had threaded through the M1907 sling in a single motion. Elbow forward, forearm through, wrist back, the leather taking tension across the bicep at the 3rd button of his shirt cuff. He had not had to think about the sequence in 50 years. The M1C Garand settled into his right shoulder. He closed his left eye. The MC1 scope above the receiver caught the early sun and gave back nothing. If you believe 50 years of daily practice cannot be replaced by $50,000 of optics, type discipline in the comments right now. And if you served Vietnam-era or Korea-era infantry, this channel was built for what you carried. Hit subscribe so we don't lose it. The Appalachian Rifle Academy sat on a south-facing slope above a valley that the Cumberland Plateau had been carving for longer than the United States had existed. The October air on the firing line smelled of cedar and the limestone dust that rose whenever a vehicle pulled onto the gravel access road. Behind the firing line, a covered classroom building. In front of it, 3 rows of steel plates at 300, 500 and 800 yards, with a single white painted plate at 1,000 yards that the instructors referred to as the long one. The plate at 1,000 was a recent addition. Cody Farris had requested it during his 2nd season as guest instructor. Cody's firing position was set up in 8 minutes. The surgeon scalpel custom action sat in a Manners MCST Elite carbon fibre chassis, a Nightforce ATACR 5x20 5x56 rode a 20 MOA rail. The ARCA interface met a tripod that cost more than most rifles on the line. His Kestrel 5700 was paired to his phone, and his phone held applied ballistics with his specific load profile loaded since the previous Tuesday. The total visible investment at his station, not counting software, was approximately $14,000. He laid each item where it belonged and did not need to think about why. He was good at this. By the end of the first classroom hour, Priya, a software engineer from Atlanta who had registered for the course because she wanted to teach herself something hard, had read her first wind value from the flags at 300 yards and adjusted her dial to within a quarter MOA of the correct call. Cody had walked her through the sequence in a voice that did not condescend and did not rush. She was capable. She left the classroom believing it. That was Cody's actual gift, the one he had not yet learned to value above his standings. Abel Sutherland introduced the students at 0730. He moved down the firing line by name and prior experience. When he reached firing point 7, he said, "Emmett Thacker, Military 11 Bravo." Emmett added nothing. Cody looked once at the M1C on the mat, the wood stock darkened by 60 years of hand oil, the MC1 scope offset to the left of the receiver in the side mount Korean snipers had used, and then back at his Kestrel. The look took a second. The deputy from Knox County saw it. Priya saw it. Abel saw it and made a small notation on his clipboard. The morning qualification strings were called at 0742. The yellow range flag was raised. Cody settled into his position. Emmett had been on the ground for 45 seconds. Cody spoke to Abel in a voice calibrated to carry. The room heard. Emmett did not look up. He took the index card from his shirt pocket, the card he had marked at the visitor lot when he read the flag shearing between the 300 and 500 yard ridges, and he set it face down on the mat beside his right elbow without unfolding it. He did not need to read it again. He had set it down because the act of setting it down was the response. The first round broke at 0744. The plate at 300 yards rang. Cody, at his own position, looked at his wind meter, then at Emmett's mat. He did not say what he was thinking, which was that the plate ring might have been luck. By 11, the cold had pulled back from the firing line, and the October light had settled into a flat clarity that reduced the apparent distance to the 800-yard plate by an amount only experience could correct for. Brass accumulated on the mats. The smell of fresh propellant overrode the cedar. At lunch, Priya brought a paper plate to Emmett's end of the picnic table and asked him about the M1907. He spent 20 minutes showing her the geometry. elbow forward of the bore axis, sling tension at the third button, why the wrist had to come back rather than under the rifle. And she understood the angles faster than anyone he had taught since 1972. He had not known until that moment that he had been hungry for it. 26 years of teaching it had not been enough. 6 years without it had been too much. The afternoon session opened at 600 yards. Emmett shot to score and watched the rest of the line between his strings. The Mirage in his MC-1 was not moving in the same direction as the wind flags. The flags read 9 o'clock light. The Mirage, 3 to 4 feet above the ground, flowed at a measurable angle north of that. The MC-1 at 2.5 power showed him the full Mirage flow from muzzle to target without compression. The high-power scopes on the other firing points showed a tighter view at the muzzle and lost the gradient. He mentioned it to Abel between strings. 2 sentences. He pointed. Abel looked. Abel did not see it on first attempt, and he turned to Cody, because that was the chain of authority he had built and had to honour. Cody checked his Kestrel. Humidity, density, altitude, station pressure. He told Abel the readings did not support a thermal layer. He was technically correct. The Kestrel measured what was measurable from a metre above the ground at his firing position. The Mirage was not in the Kestrel. Emmett did not correct him. He returned to his mat. 2 students pulled 3 to 4 inches left of point of aim, despite calls Cody had reviewed and approved. Cody attributed it to a cant issue in their rear bags and adjusted their wind value by half a minute. The next group corrected partially. Emmett watched and said nothing. By the end of the first day, Emmett had loaded the M1C into its case and was thinking about driving home. He stayed because of the lunch table. He walked back to his Silverado, pulled a clean shop rag from the glove box, and conditioned the leather of the sling in the direction of the grain while the parking lot emptied around him. Abel announced at the debrief that Sunday's final session would be the 1,000-yard plate. Cody had requested it. Cody was the standard. That evening, Emmett added 1 click of left windage to the MC-1 for the morning's colder air. He told no one. Sunday morning came in cold and dry under a sky that had no clouds in it. The 7 students had cleared the 800-yard plate by 09:30. The 1,000-yard plate was a 12-inch white square on a steel stand at the far end of the valley. Cody had requested its addition the previous spring because he wanted a distance that separated serious shooters from the rest of the room. He shot it first, 3 for 5, clean hits, 2 misses, and a calm critique of the misses for the line. The deputy hit 4, Priya hit 3 and walked back from her firing point with her hands shaking from something other than cold. Emmett went last. The mat went down at 1,024. He spent 6 minutes on the position. He adjusted the mat 3 inches to the left to keep the heat shimmer off the gravel out of the lower third of his scope. He threaded the M1907 sling through his left arm, elbow forward of the bore axis, the leather taking tension at the third button of his shirt cuff, the wrist coming back rather than under. He worked his right knee onto the ground in 2 stages, which took 30 seconds and was the reason for his slowness everywhere else. The 3 left fingers that did not fully extend in the cold did not need to extend. The sling was the architecture that held the weight the muscle would otherwise have to hold. The cheek weld required 1 adjustment with his right hand. The MC-1 came into focus on the steel. Then he did nothing for 11 seconds. He inhaled. He let half out. He waited. The rifle fired. The sound crossed the valley. 3 seconds passed. The plate rang. He worked the operating rod in the smooth single cycle of an action he had cycled 10,000 times. He read the Mirage. He did not adjust the dial. He fired again. Ring. He worked the bolt. Fired. Ring. Worked. Fired. Ring. Worked. Fired. Ring. 5 rounds. 5 rings. The empty Lake City brass sat on the firing point mat in a diagonal line that reflected the cycle rhythm of his right hand. Abel walked to the chronograph station and read the data aloud in the flat voice of a man reading numbers he was still trying to believe. Average muzzle velocity 2,620 feet per second. Wind at 1,000, full value, 9 miles per hour, 9 o'clock. First round correction inside 6 inches of point of aim, with a fixed 2.5 power scope manufactured before the moon landing. For 12 seconds, no one on the firing line spoke. The wind flags at 1,000 yards continued to move. The steel plate continued to display 5 hits in a tight pattern that did not square with anything Cody Farris had been taught in any class he had ever paid for. Priya had tears on her face and did not appear to know it. She was looking at the line of Lake City brass on the mat. The deputy from Knox County took off his hat and held it against his chest. The firefighter from Chattanooga walked to Abel and said quietly, "I have been shooting 22 years. I have never watched anyone do that." Cody's hands lowered to his sides. His phone screen went dark. He looked at his Kestrel, then at the steel plate at 1,000 yards, then at Emmett's position. He did not move for almost a minute. Abel walked down range. He covered the 1,000 yards on foot at the pace of a man who was not in a hurry to arrive. He knelt beside the steel plate and ran his fingers across the 5 impact marks. He stayed there for 4 minutes. When he came back, he walked straight to firing point 7. He did not stop at his clipboard, did not stop at the chronograph, did not stop at Cody. He extended his hand to Emmett and said 6 words that nobody else on the firing line was close enough to hear. The 6 words, "Sergeant Tibbs taught you, didn't he?" Emmett looked at Abel for a moment. "Yes," he said, "he did." Bill reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and took out a folded paper, an old photograph, creased along the lines where it had been folded for 40 years. He laid it flat on the firing point at Matt, weighted at the corner with a stone. The photograph showed a man in army issue prone behind a garand on a range. The M1907 sling wrapped in the 3rd button geometry, the upper arm at exactly the angle Emmett's upper arm had been in for the last 6 minutes. "My grandfather," Abel said. "Korea, 1952. He shot like that until he died. I never asked him to teach me, I thought it was obsolete." His voice did not rise. It was not. Emmett looked at the photograph for a long time. The man in it was not someone he had known. The position was, he bent at the knee on the right one, the slow one, and laid 2 fingers on the corner of the paper next to Abel's stone. He did not pick it up. He did not need to. Tibbs would have called him a careful man, he said. That's the highest thing he said about anyone. Cody Farris had walked over from his firing position without making a sound. He stopped at the edge of the mat and waited until Emmett straightened up. Then he said, "I told the room your equipment wasn't appropriate for a practical course. I said it where you could hear it. I was wrong about the equipment. I was more wrong about the man holding it." He stopped. "I've never trained the hasty sling to the point where it becomes anything other than a backup. I'm going to start. I won't be teaching it again until I have." Emmett did not say anything for a few seconds. "Practice it every morning," he said. "Whether anyone asked you to or not. That's the whole instruction. The rifle does the rest." The sun had cleared the ridge by then. The wind flags at 300 yards still read 9 o'clock light. The empty Lake City brass on the mat caught the light in its diagonal line. The chronograph screen had gone to standby. What happened on firing point 7 this morning came from a chain that has been thinning for 40 years. The men in it taught the next men, and most of those have gone quietly. This channel exists to find the ones still standing. Subscribe, there is more transmitting left to do. Emmett bent again at the knee, lifted the spent brass case by case, and put each one into the shirt pocket where the index card had been. He had brought the card to make notes on. He had not opened it once. He turned and walked back toward the parking lot at the pace his right leg required.